You are not stuck. I know it feels that way, and I know there are parts of your life that have looked the same for so long you've started to believe this is just how it will always be. The same thoughts, the same reactions, the same habits, the same feeling, and no matter how much you want more, you somehow end up right back where you started. And after a while, you stop fighting it. Not because you've made peace with it, because you've gotten tired. Tired of trying, tired of hoping, tired of believing something could change, only to watch yourself slip back into the same thing. So eventually you stop saying, I need help, and you start saying, this is just who I am. But it isn't, and you are not stuck. You've been trained, and that changes everything. Because if you were stuck, there would be nothing that you could do. If you were broken, there would be no hope. If this was simply who you are, then this would be the end of the story. But it isn't. Because everything you've been living in, every pattern, every reaction, every belief, was learned. You learned to shut down. You learned to stay busy. You learn to expect disappointment. You learn to protect yourself. You learn to numb out. You learn to believe you were on your own. And if something was learned, it can be unlearned. That's why this matters. Because most people spend their lives trying to change the result without ever changing the training. They want a different life, but they keep thinking the same thoughts, believing the same lies, and following the same emotional patterns. And then they wonder why nothing changes. You cannot create a different future with the same training that created your past. At some point, you have to stop calling your training you. Because the man you are today is not just the result of what happened to you. He is the result of what you have repeated. Repeated thoughts, repeated feelings, and repeated decisions. That's what training is. You don't become something because you do it once. You become something because you do it over and over and over again. And, that's true for fear, and it's true for courage. It's true for doubt, and it's true for faith. You have spent years training yourself into certain ways of living. Not necessarily on purpose or because you wanted to, because you were surviving. But now, you're being invited into something different here. Not survival, training. Intentional. Daily, small reps. Because the life you want, it can't be built in one big moment. You can't rebuild your life in one big moment. It's about building it in repetition, putting in the reps. You do not become a different man because you finally feel motivated. You become a different man because you practice being him again and again and again, even when it feels awkward, even when you don't believe it yet, even when the old part of you keeps trying to pull you back. Because that old part, it has been trained too. It knows the old path. It knows the old reaction, the old story. It feels safe there, even if it doesn't serve you. But every time you choose something different, it's going to feel uncomfortable. Not because you're doing the wrong thing, because you're doing something new. And new feels unsafe to a mind that has been trained by survival. That's why you cannot trust your feelings in the beginning, because your feelings have been trained by that old pattern. If you only move when you feel like it, you will keep recreating. You're going to keep recreating. If you only move when you feel like it, you will keep recreating the same life. At some point, you have to let truth lead, even when your feelings haven't caught up yet. That's faith, not pretending, not forcing, choosing to act from what you know is true instead of what you have always felt. Be transformed By the renewing of your mind. Renewing. Not once, not all at once, over and over. That's training. You train your mind. You train your thoughts. You train your attention. You train yourself to stop agreeing with the lie and start agreeing with the truth. Not because it feels true yet, because it is true. And eventually, your life begins to follow. Your emotions begin to follow. Your reactions begin to follow. Your habits begin to follow. Not because you force them, because you train them. This is where most people quit, right in the middle, after they've seen the truth, but before it feels natural. They think it's not working, but it is. You're just in that awkward part, the part where the old life still feels familiar and the new life still feels far away. But don't stop there, because every time you choose truth, every time you interrupt the old pattern, every time you do the thing you would not have done before, you're training, you're becoming. And one day, you're going to look back and realize the things that used to control you don't anymore. Not because you finally became somebody else, because you finally trained yourself to live like who you really are, who you're meant to be, who you're called to be, who you were created to be. So if you feel stuck today, just hear me out here. You're not stuck. You're trained. And what is being trained can be retrained. One thought, one choice, one day at a time. And we're just getting started.